After Kim Ja-hong passes the 7 trials of the underworld and is reincarnated, his recently deceased younger brother, Soo-hong, is guided by the same 3 guardians, Hae-won, Deok-chun and Kang Rim, to begin his trial as well. Before they arrive at King Yomra, the lord of the underworld's court, they must fight off an army of sand demons that have spawned to kill Soo-hong as he carries the mark of a vengeful spirit, given that his soul sought revenge on his killers. During the battle, King Yomra grants them passage and they present themselves in front of him. He is angry with Kang Rim, as bringing a vengeful spirit into the underworld is against the rules. Kang Rim argues that according to the rules, a spirit, regardless of whether vengeful or not, can be granted a fair trial if their death was unjust. He says that Soo-hong's death was unjust as he was buried alive after being shot by accident, as a cover-up, which resulted in his death. But ultimately, it's about the intention. Did his 2 friends know he was still alive when they were burying him, or did they think he was already dead? Only a trial can reveal the answer. So, King Yomra grants Soo-hong a trial, but this trial will be different according to the rules. Instead of going through all 7 trials, Soo-hong will only go through the ones tied to his death, which will eventually reveal whether his killers knew they were burying him alive. There are only 2 trials connected to his death: injustice and violence. In order to begin the first trial, they must travel through 4 different hells to get there. Kang Rim will take Soo-hong on this journey, but that doesn't mean these 2 are let off the hook just yet. King Yomra has a task for them. On the outskirts of a shanty town in South Korea lives a poor old man named Hyo Chun Sam with his grandson, Hyundong. Hyo Chun Sam's death has been long overdue now. However, he worships a 1,000-year-old household god called Songju. After listening to the man's prayers, Songju decided to appear to the man one day and help him. He now lives with him, assisting him with chores and even plays uncle to Hyundong. Whenever King Yomra sends guardians to collect Hyo Chun Sam's soul, Songju, being a troublemaker god, always prevents them and sends them running with their tails between their legs. Since Hae-won is one of the baddest mofos and the most experienced guardian after Kang Rim, he is instructed to go collect Hyo Chun Sam's soul, along with Deok-chun, and to kill Songju by smashing the earthenware jar he always carries with him, which is an enshrinement containing his ashes, that he must preserve or else he will die. To make matters even worse, King Yomra puts a time limit of 49 days on all these tasks collectively. If within that time frame Kang Rim can't pass Soo-hong through the 2 trials and the other 2 can't collect Hyo Chun Sam's soul, they will be stripped of the title of guardian and punished, and Soo-hong will be thrown into eternal damnation without a trial. Failing to locate the jar, Hae-won and Deok-chun speed things up and attempt to collect Hyo Chun Sam's soul, but Songju steps in and destroys the both of them while Hyo Chun Sam sleeps soundly. After all, he'll need a good night's sleep if he wants to live a healthy long life. As the 2 of them beg for forgiveness, Songju is surprised they don't remember him. He tells them that he was both of their guardians into the underworld when they died 1,000 years ago. He finds it very strange that King Yomra wiped their memories of their past lives, as this isn't standard procedure and the king had never done it before. Also, he's actually a pretty cool guy. He tells them that the reason he's preventing the old man's death is because he's the only family the little boy, Hyundong, has left. Since they were really poor, Hyo Chun Sam couldn't afford to send Hyundong to school before, but he will be attending his first day in 40 days. He wants the boy to have the memory of his grandpa taking him to school on his first day. So he says that after 40 days they can have the old man. Until then, he'll kick their asses if they try. Meanwhile, Kang Rim harpoons a giant fish monster in the River of 3 Crossings and uses Soo-hong as bait to speed up their journey and get to the trials quicker. On Earth, Hae-won and Deok-chun hide out and keep an eye on Songju while waiting out the 40 days. They observe as a loan shark and his gang come looking to collect a long overdue payment from Hyo Chun Sam. Songju pleads with them, but they shove him out the way and destroy Hyo Chun Sam's home. Relieving himself of the title of guardian and becoming a household god means that Songju cannot harm humans even if he tried. This is when Hae-won steps in to bargain. He offers to not only uphold the 40-day restriction, but also have the funeral and Hyundong taken care of when Hyo Chun Sam dies. In return, he wants Songju to help Deok-chun and him recover all the lost memories of their past lives. He reluctantly agrees. Then, their conversation is interrupted by the loan shark threatening to break Hyundong's leg as a lesson to his grandpa. But don't worry, as Hae-won steps in and shows them why that's not a very nice thing to say, by breaking all of their legs. In return for this kind gesture, Songju keeps his promise by telling Hae-won about his past life. It appears Hae-won was an even badder mofo back in the day. 1,000 years ago, during the Goryeo dynasty, Hae-won was one of the greatest military generals, known as White Wildcat, for the white fur scarf he always wore during battle. He slaughtered many Jurchen invaders at the northern border by the dozens, while still keeping his white fur scarf spotless, because even their blood was afraid to get clapped by the Wildcat. That night, the Guardians convince Songju that the best place for Hyundong is an orphanage. So the next day they schedule a meeting with the director, who tells them that she'll need a document from his guardian proving that they aren't able to take care of him anymore. Outside, Deok-chun plays with a group of orphaned kids, and Songju notes how she's never changed in 1,000 years. In her past life, Deok-chun was an 18-year-old Jurchen girl who lived in a small village. When they were attacked by Goryeo invaders, she fled with all the young children to the mountains and took care of them. When they get back to Hyo-chun-sam, he refuses to send Hyundong to the orphanage, as he believes that would mean he failed as a grandfather. So they decide that after Hyo-chun-sam's death, Songju will become his legal guardian. Later that day, Songju tells Haewon and Deok-chun that they crossed paths in their past lives. One day when Deok-chun came down from the mountains to find food for the children, she was attacked by a tiger, but you see back then, Haewon was an even badder mofo. He comes to her rescue and kills the tiger. After identifying her as a Jurchen girl, he demands she lead him and his men to her hideout. And after breaking in, they discover all the kids. Haewon's right-hand man reminds him that they're Jurchen kids, so they should root them all out. And Haewon says he'll do it himself, before taking a knife and walking into the cabin while Deok-chun stares helplessly. Well, I guess back then root them out meant cook them a nice warm meal, cause that's what they did. On TV, Haewon sees that Soo-hong's body was discovered and the two responsible for his death were arrested. Along the journey, Kang Rim and Soo-hong argue over his death. Soo-hong believes that his death was a genuine mistake on his two friends' parts, that they really believed he was dead when they were burying him, and if they knew he was still alive they would have stopped and helped him. He says they were like brothers to him, and there's no way they'd betray him. But Kang Rim interrupts him, saying that he was once betrayed by his own brother in his past life. It appears that even though Kang Rim had become a guardian at the same time as Deok-chun and Haewon, he still retains all of his memories. So, 1,000 years ago, Kang Rim's father, General Kang Moon-jik, was the commander-in-chief of the Goryeo army against the Khitans. When Kang Rim was a teenager, his father made him tag along on the battlefield, so that he may learn and follow his footsteps, to become a great general as well. Whenever the Khitans would surrender after a devastating loss, Kang Moon-jik would let them go. Kang Rim was against this. He believed that they were barbarians and deserved no mercy, yet his father always preferred mercy over killing. One day while making their way back through a war-torn Khitan village, they see a young boy, the lone survivor of his village, consoling an injured horse. Showing mercy, he stabs and kills the horse so that it doesn't suffer in pain. Kang Moon-jik admires this trait, and decides to adopt him. The boy eventually surpasses Kang Rim in everything from board games to sword combat, and Kang Rim watches as they grow closer. Whenever he isn't around, his father calls the boy son, and the boy calls him dad. Kang Rim is mad. Damn, now I gotta stab horses to get some love around here? One day a couple decades later, before a final battle with one of the Khitan fronts, Kang Rim eavesdrops on a conversation between his father and brother. His father wants his brother to lead the vanguard against the Khitans as he believes the Khitans are on the back foot. Although it was meant to be Kang Rim's honor, his father says that Kang Rim's inability to show mercy will result in a lot of unnecessary casualties. Well, he was wrong. Without Kang Rim's aggressive strategy, much of the front line was killed off, including his father, and they had to retreat. After that, Kang Rim had become commander-in-chief of the Goryeo army, and he never forgave his brother, believing him to be the reason his father died. That night, Deok-chun and Haewon ask Songju more about their lives, and he tells them that they had become close friends. But one day, Haewon asks about her parents, and she tells him that they were simple farmers who were killed when the Goryeo attacked their village. She says they were killed by the general known as White Wildcat, who wore a white fur scarf that covered the lower part of his face. Oops, my bad, says Haewon, silently within his head. Kang Rim and Soo-hong arrive at the first trial, the Hell of Injustice, where souls are punished in ice for hundreds of years. They present themselves before King Ergo. The prosecutors say that after becoming a vengeful spirit, Soo-hong had wreaked havoc on the living world and the underworld, and for that reason he is a grave sinner and should be confined in ice for 500 years. When Kang Rim states that his killers knew they were burying him alive, King Ergo asks to see proof. But all of Soo-hong's records were thrown out as protocol when he turned into a vengeful spirit. So, Kang Rim summons a witness from the living world, Dong Yun, the man who shot Soo-hong. While in hospital after attempting to end his life out of guilt for what he did, they summon him during his sleep. Believing this to be a dream, he initially answers all of their questions. But when Kang Rim presses him about whether or not he saw that Soo-hong was still alive when he buried him, Dong Yun becomes extremely distressed and suffers a heart attack and dies. Now, the charge of murder has also been added to Soo-hong's records, and as such he now must face a trial in the Hell of Murder. King Ergo allows them to pass to the next trial, as it's still unknown whether Soo-hong was killed knowingly, but the next trial may reveal the answer. The next day, when Songju and the two guardians are getting ready to go to court so that he can become Hyundong's legal guardian, Deok-chun and Haewon begin arguing. She is sickened by him for killing her innocent parents, and she says she never forgave him, nor will she ever. Oh, but she did, says Songju. After finding out what he did to her parents, Haewon wanted to tell her and ask for forgiveness, but he never had the courage to do so. So instead, knowing he wouldn't be able to care for her and the children as he belonged on the battlefield. He taught them everything he knew about survival. Whenever he would report to his superior, General Mi Lian, he would lie about the food supply him and his men needed so that he could give more to Deok-chan and the kids. After Songju successfully becomes Hyundong's legal guardian, they make their way back home, only to find that the loan sharks from earlier had returned when they were out, destroyed the entire place and attacked Hyo-chun Sam. Immediately, Songju falls to the ground. Earlier, while vandalizing the home, the loan sharks had broken Songju's jar, and now he's dying. As he grows weaker, he continues to tell their story. One day, Mi Lian grew suspicious, so he tortured one of Haewon's men until he told him the truth. He tied Haewon and his friend to a tree and left them for the wolves while setting out to find the kids' hideout and kill them. But you see, back then, Haewon was an even badder mofo. After killing the wolves, he drags his friend's body by himself all the way up to the mountains and warns Deok-chun before Mi Lian and his men can get to them. As Mi Lian approaches, Haewon tells Deok-chun to leave with the kids while he buys them time. Before she walks away, he takes out the white fur scarf and ties it around her to keep her warm. He then tells her he is sorry. She begins to cry, but in her pain, she still hugs and forgives him. As she leaves, Haewon turns to Mi Lian and his men and draws his sword for the final time. At the next trial, in the Hell of Violence, Kang Rim asks King Jingwang to defer the trial, so that all charges may be handled in the final trial. Also, he wants King Yomura to be present at the final trial. As per T's and C's, Kang Rim puts his guardianship and his own reincarnation on the line to make this happen, both of which he will have to forfeit if he loses the trial. It is granted and he and Su Hong make their way to the Hell of Murder. But Su Hong is smart, questioning the lengths Kang Rim is willing to go to. He figures out that Kang Rim isn't just doing all this for him, but also for himself. So he asks Kang Rim what memories from his past life are so bad that he wants to wipe them out for good and be reincarnated. As Songju nears his last breath, he tells the two guardians that nobody is inherently good or bad. It is bad circumstances that create bad intentions and then bad people and vice versa. He then says that they should always take a moment and read things backwards, then they will all make sense. Songju then disintegrates. Haewon, now slowly grasping the cryptic message left in Songju's final words, writes down Mi Lian's name on a piece of paper and turns it around, revealing that backwards it spells Kang Rim, in Korean that is. Then, we see the final showdown. Kang Rim draws his sword on the helpless Haewon, who, apparently, was his adoptive brother if you didn't catch that yet. Haewon begs him to spare the kids, but Kang Rim kills him, only for him to be killed himself by Deok-chun, only for her to be killed by him. As all three of them lie there, King Yomura approaches Kang Rim and asks why he is crying. Is it because he got wasted by a girl, or because he's sorry for what he did? As Kang Rim and Su Hong appear in the final court before King Byeong-song, Haewon and Deok-chun hide out and observe the trial. Kang Rim summons one more witness, Park Mu-sim, the other man responsible for Su Hong's death. Park slips into a trance while in the prison courtyard and his consciousness appears in the court. Kang Rim asks him whether he knew that Su Hong was still alive when he buried him, but Park is afraid to reply. Kang Rim then asks King Yomura why his father, Kang Moon-jik's death was recorded as a murder and not an honorable death on the battlefield, and he replies that it's because he was murdered by Kang Rim himself. After Kang Rim confirms this, King Yomura then asks him why he did it. So, as it turns out, Kang Rim sort of technically may have kind of murdered his father. That day, after the battle, Kang Rim and his men went to the front lines to find survivors. Kang Rim spotted his father, buried under the rest of his men, but he was still alive. Kang Rim then chose to abandon his father and instructed his men to retreat. He was afraid that his father would make Haewon commander-in-chief if he survived, but later that night he was overcome with guilt so he went back to the battlefield, but it was too late. This is what motivated him to help Su Hong, as his death reminded him of his father's, and he regretted what he did every single day for the past 1,000 years. He regretted not being able to apologize to his father. That day when he died, King Yomura offered him a deal as redemption but also to make it up to the innocent people he had just murdered. He would make Kang Rim and the two of them guardians, but he would wipe their memories while leaving Kang Rim's memories intact as a punishment. If Kang Rim could successfully pass 49 souls through the 7 trials during the next 1,000 years, King Yomura will reincarnate Haewon and Deok-chun. He will also reincarnate Kang Rim and wipe all of his memories. Kang Rim takes the deal, having regretted what he did, and wanting to forget it all. He wanted Haewon and Deok-chun to get a second chance at life and he wanted one without the burden of guilt for his sins. After hearing about Kang Rim's immense regret for what he did to his father, Park gains the courage to confess that he and Dong-yeon did in fact know that Su Hong was still alive when they buried him. But since he was struggling to make ends meet with a baby on the way and a promotion around the corner, he convinced himself it was too late anyway. He then apologizes to Su Hong and he is forgiven before he leaves, and returns back to jail. Fucking idiot. This also means Dong Yan died from the shock of guilt rather than murder. King Byong-song then clears Su Hong of his charges and he is transported in line for reincarnation. Su Hong was Kang Rim's 49th soul. Then, they go to collect Hyo Chun Sam's soul, but they decide to defer his ascension until Hyundong Graduate School. Until then, they will remain guardians instead of reincarnating. Then, Kang Rim takes the other two guardians to guide the next soul, who happens to be Dong Yun. Before they begin the trials, he attempts to come clean to Deok Chun and Haewon about what he did to them, believing they don't know, but they have already forgiven him, and tell him that it's a 1,000-year-old story anyway. The end.